I am sick and tired of the former Vice President of the United States taking shots, not only at this administration, for problems that he was largely and personally responsible for. This man suffers from a horrible case of political Tourette's, and it's about time that we stand up and kick right back, because I'm sick and tired of him kicking us in our shins. People like Jim DeMint and people like Dick Cheney need to go away so we can solve the problems they've created.
Savor that eloquent and rather righteous bit of indignation from Democratic Congressman Eric Massa of New York, speaking tonight here on MSNBC on the Ed Schultz Show. Because Eric Massa appears to be the only Democratic member of Congress out there calling out the other side for cynical, grandstandy smear tactics in the way of the Christmas Day underwear attempted bomb attack. Where's the rest of the political majority? Well, wherever they are, they're missing a political free play here, a fish-in-a-barrel opportunity to fight fire with water or some other equally obvious, really effective fire retardant. This is a gimme. How long would it take if Democrats decided to fight back on TV or the radio or the interwebs or cable? Well, I mean, check this out. We put this together today with our skeleton holiday staff. We put it together in about an hour using a total of 3 people, including one very good intern.
The Republican Party uses a terror attack against Americans to raise money for their political campaigns. But what are Republicans doing to actually keep America safe? Are they funding airport screening, including $1.1 billion for explosive detection machines? 108 Republican representatives voted against keeping America safe. Do they support using whole-body imaging machines on passengers? Republican Congressman Jason Chaffetz of Utah wants to ban all those machines that keep America safe. How about getting someone to run the TSA? Republican Senator Jim DeMint of South Carolina is blocking the nomination of this man to help keep America safe. So, have Republicans done anything this year to keep us safe?
The Second Amendment doesn't derail the right to bear arms if you happen to be on a train.
Guns on trains. That's the Republican plan to keep America safe. For a safe America, vote Democratic. Keep America from heading off the rails.
Guns on trains. All right, that's not a real ad, but all the facts in it are real. Are Democrats doing anything like that? Are they even thinking about it? It's not just this latest terror attack that leaves the Republicans ripe for some political point scoring if the Democrats chose to do so. It's also their record of incoherent flip-flopping on what to do with other terrorists or suspected terrorists. When, for example, both the Republican president at the time and his attempted Republican successor supported closing Guantanamo, you might recall that there was a lot of silence on the right about that.
I'd like to end Guantanamo. I'd like it to be over with.
I believe we should close Guantanamo and work with our allies.
But when President Obama tried to make that a reality and close Guantanamo and bring some of those prisoners to a federal prison and try some of them in federal court, cue the fake right-wing outrage.
Decisions to bring detainees to the United States and afford them civilian trials is highly questionable.
That's all we need in Northern Illinois is to be known as the Gitmo North.
I do not understand why a war criminal should be able to have the same rights as a common criminal.
Although the Christmas Day failed bombing, and that bomber himself, apparently, has so terrified Republicans that they're now dropping their previously held policy positions on counterterrorism, the record shows a distinct lack of complaint from them about terrorists like the shoe bomber Richard Reed and the blind sheikh Omar Abdel-Rahman and the World Trade Center bomber Ramzi Youssef, all being tried in the normal American justice system and all being sentenced to federal prisons. There was no Republican outrage about those cases when they happened, and yet there's apparently no Democratic pushback on the Republicans' flailing, incoherent counterterrorism hypocrisy right now. Joining us now is Democratic strategist Chris Kofinas. Chris, thanks very much for being here tonight. It's good to have you on the show.
Thanks, Rachel.
Are Democrats seizing the moral high ground here about not politicizing terrorism because politicizing terrorism is bad for the country? Or are they just losing by refusing to engage in this fight?
Well, I think they're trying to do both, and it's a difficult one just from a communications perspective. You know, I think the DNC, the DCCC, the White House, you know, all pushed back and hit on some of the points that you talked about earlier, as well as in the beginning of the show, and the hypocrisy of the Republicans and the blatant political partisan nature of their attacks. But at the same time, I also think that they're playing it smart in one respect, in that when you talk about national security and this attempted terrorist attack, you know, the right message is to go out there and say, listen, the Republicans want to sit there and make this about Democrats. We want to make this about, you know, stopping terrorists and keeping America safe. We want to focus on Americans. They want to focus on partisan attacks. It's not always easy to do because the vitriolic nature of the Republican attacks gets attention, especially when it's someone like a Dick Cheney. But, you know, the one thing I think to keep in mind, this is the good thing, is that they have lost credibility both as a party as well as their key spokesman. People like Dick Cheney do not have any credibility when it comes to national security because their hypocrisy as well as their failed policies have been exposed to the American people again and again and again.
In a general rule, I feel like if you're calling a fight, if you're calling an argument, I guess, the person who's complaining about the tactics is losing the fight. And complaining about the Republicans politicizing this terror attack, I think, is a way for Democrats to show that they feel weak in this this fight. It seems like the position of strength for the Democrats is to go after Republicans on their own national security record, not just the historical record that undercuts Dick Cheney's arguments, but the current stuff that Republicans are offering. That's actually what we were trying to get at with that fake ad talking about their big transportation security plan for this year being guns on trains. Are any Democrats stepping up to do that, and do you think it would be a smart way to go?
You know, I think you're going to see a lot of Democrats do that, especially as this kind of moves forward. But at the end of the day, when it comes to national security issues, especially like an attempted terrorist attack, you know, a lot of the pressure and the weight in terms of the response falls on the White House. In terms of the politics, you know, you're seeing this, I think, you know, a lot of it coming from the DNC. You saw Congressman Massa. You're seeing, you know, Congressman Van Hollen, others speak out about this. But, you know, to step back and look at what the Republicans are trying to do here, the Republicans are trying to get the Democrats into a mud fight. They're trying to basically make the issue of national security a partisan one. And when it comes, I think, to the politics of national security, especially the politics of terrorism, the American people, I think, really do not look favorably upon anyone trying to, you know, lay partisan attacks. And I think this is where the Republican attacks have backfired and are going to backfire miserably. It is a terrible strategy, if for no other reason that they don't have any credibility in terms of the issue. I mean, aside from the fact that when you saw, you know, President Bush and Dick Cheney basically ignore failure after failure, and let's not forget that Osama bin Laden is still out there. Let's not forget that they went to war with a different country than the one that supposedly attacked us. So this notion that they are going to keep this country safe and have kept this country safe doesn't fly, I think, with the American people. They want to make this an issue, and this is where the challenge is for Democrats. Be strong, but don't play into this mud fight.
Chris Kofinas, Democratic strategist and former communications director for the Edwards campaign. Thanks very much for joining us, Chris. Happy New Year to you.
Thanks, Rachel. Happy New Year to you, too.